Good afternoon, and thank you for attending today. My name is Juanita Riley. I'm the contract specialist for the Texas Lottery Commission. This is a pre-proposal conference for the Lottery Drawing CPA Services RFP number 362-2022-0004. On the panel today, we have Angela Skyby-Sagarba. She's our Contracts and Facilities Manager. Eric Williams, he's our Hub Coordinator. Kaya Wolf, he's our Assistant General Counsel. Conchita Daniel, she's our drawing supervisor. If you've not already done so, please scan the QR code with the mobile device or use the link that was provided to sign in. A copy of the sign-in sheet will be posted on the ESVD, which is the Electronic States Business Daily, and Texas Lottery's website prior to the next business day. This is for sharing of information between prime vendors and subcontractors. Communications will be primarily through the ESPD and the Texas Lottery's website. Emails will also be used for the RFP. We strongly advise you to check with your IT department to ensure that our emails will not be filtered away. Some businesses block out the phrase lottery, so you won't be able to receive emails from the Texas Lottery Commission if the filter does not allow it to come through. This conference is being recorded. If you have any questions, please submit your questions in the Q&A feature throughout the conference, and we will answer in order received during the question and answer sessions at the end of each part. Our Contracts and Facilities Manager, Angela, will be monitoring the Q&As. We will review the recording after the conference and reinstate the questions and answers in the Q&A document, which will be released in accordance with the scheduled events. We'll give you our best responses to your questions today. However, any questions we cannot answer today will be answered in writing and will be included in the Q&A document. Please note the written Q&A document is our final answer. Following this conference, if you think of additional questions, you have an opportunity to submit these in writing. These are your opportunities to ask questions, and we encourage you to do so regarding the requirements of the RFP. If you're unsure of language written in the RFP or need further clarification, this is your chance to receive the information you need. After proposals are received, it is then the Texas Lottery's time to ask questions and/or seek clarification if needed. Please note that any oral communication that would alter or amend the RFP as written is not binding. Any and all changes or modification to the RFP will be made in writing and posted on the ESPD and the Texas Lottery's website. You're encouraged to check these websites throughout this process and once more before submitting a proposal. Please note that there may be several RFPs posted on the TLC's website at one time, so be sure that you're viewing the correct RFP for updates. This RFP is open to any and all vendors who perform the services. To submit a proposal, you do not have to be registered on the CMBL, which is a centralized master bidders list, be Hub certified, nor is there any approved vendor list. We'll briefly review the RFP by parts. While we may discuss only certain sections or provisions of the RFP during this conference, all sections and provisions of the RFP are important, and you should read and understand the entire RFP before submitting your proposal. You will have an opportunity after each part to ask general questions. We'll begin with Part 1, General Information. Section 1.4, Schedule Events. This section includes critical dates for this procurement. If there are any changes to these dates up to the deadline for proposals, an amendment will be posted on the ESPD and the Texas Lottery's website. In Section 1.7, because we are a state agency, proposals are subject to the Public Information Act, also known as the Open Records Act. During the procurement process, we will not release any information contained in your proposal. However, after a contract is awarded, your entire proposal is subject to this act and is considered public information. If there's any information in your proposal that is confidential and exempt from disclosure under the Texas Public Information Act, you must mark it as confidential. Examples of confidential information may be financial information or information that you consider trade secret or proprietary. It's important that you mark every applicable page and/or section that you consider confidential, and if possible, mark which exceptions of the Texas Public Information Act it falls under. The Public Information Act is located under the Texas Government Code Chapter 552. On the Office of the Attorney General's website is the Public Information Handbook, which lists all the exceptions. If you have information that you consider confidential, please respond to Section 1.7 and list the information, including a brief commentary or justification, in addition to marking the individual sections and/or pages. Angela, are there any questions on part 1?
Hi, Juanita. There are no questions at this time.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to part 2, the proposal process. As stated in section 2.1, I'm the sole point of contact for the RFP. All questions should be directed to me, including any hub questions. Section 2.4, questions shall be submitted via email by the deadline in the scheduled events. Responses will be posted on the TLC and ESBD website. Section 2.5, proposals shall be submitted in the format prescribed in this section. Proposers have the option to submit proposals either hard copy or electronically. If you submit a hard copy under section 2.5.1, hand or overnight delivery submission, you need to submit 1 signed original and 6 copies. The original proposal should be clearly marked as original and shall be bound in a 3-ring binder. The HUB subcontracting plan should also consist of 1 signed original and 2 copies. The signed original cost proposal should be contained in a separate sealed envelope as an attachment to the original proposal. If you submit an electronic copy under section 2.5.2, electronic delivery submission, electronic responses shall be sent via email to procurement@lottery.state.tx.us. The subject line on the email shall contain the RFP name and number along with the proposer's name. Please submit 1 signed original proposal, 1 signed original HUB subcontracting plan, and 1 signed original cost proposal in separate PDFs. Each PDF file attachment shall be clearly named. Be sure that your proposal contains responses to all sections and parts of the RFP, and be sure your proposal numbering corresponds with that of the RFP. You may provide a blanket acknowledgement and acceptance for parts 1, 2, and 3, unless a section requires a specific detailed answer. Parts 4 and 6 require a section-by-section response. So that means for our 4.1, we're looking for a 4.1 in your response that corresponds with the RFP. For part 5, for hand or overnight delivery, complete and submit 1 signed original and 2 copies of the HSP. This can be in a separate binder or folder. As for electronic delivery, please submit 1 signed original. For hand or overnight delivery, the cost proposal should be a separately sealed attachment to the proposal containing 1 signed original. As for electronic delivery, please submit 1 signed original. If proposers feel a section does not provide a detailed response, then it is acceptable to state that you agree and will comply. In section 2.5.7, the proposer's commitment, attachment A, and the background information certification, attachment D1, must be signed by an officer or agent of proposer with the authority to contractually bind the proposer, and the original attachment must be included in the original proposal. In section 2.5.10, in addition to the printed proposal, you are required to submit an electronic copy on a USB drive and searchable PDF file of the text portion of your proposal only. Do not include costs. Section 2.5.11. Please note copyrighted proposals are unacceptable and may be rejected. Section 2.6 covers the format and contents of which your proposal must be organized, which includes the letter transmittal, executive summary, either a blanket acknowledgement of parts 1, 2, and 3, or a section-by-section response to 1, 2, and 3. Section-by-section response for parts 4 and 6, seal cost proposal attached to the original proposal only if submitted a printed version, or 1 separate PDF if submitted electronically. Attachment A, the proposer's commitment. Attachment D1, background information certification. Section 2.7, letter of transmittal must state that the proposal is valid for 180 days. Also include an overview of why your company is most qualified and include a statement accepting the terms and conditions in Part 3 and or any exceptions to such. Section 2.8, executive summary should be a full and concise summary and not exceed 5 pages. Section 210, cost proposal. Cost proposals must be in a format included in attachment H, either in a separate sealed envelope as an attachment to the original proposal or a separate PDF. We only need the 1 signed original. Disclosures of costs in the body of the written proposal is cause for disqualification. The sealed envelope should only contain the cost proposal. Do not include any marketing materials or other information in your sealed cost proposal. The sealed cost proposal is not open until after the proposal is scored on its technical merit. Therefore, any additional materials that are included in the sealed envelope will not be evaluated. Section 211, proposers may submit only one proposal and one cost proposal. Section 212, any RFP changes, modification, or cancellations will be posted on the TLC and the ESPD website. Section 215, proposal evaluation. The scoring matrix is attachment G and will be used for evaluation proposals in response to this RFP. Please note that there are two pass-fail categories, the HSP analysis and the financial analysis. Your proposal essentially goes through 4 phases once it's submitted. Phase 1 is the initial assessment for compliance and completeness. Phase 2, it is review for financial analysis and HSP. Phase 3, it is reviewed and evaluated for technical merit. In Phase 4, the cost proposal is open and reviewed. If at any given time your proposal is disqualified, you will receive a notice stating such. Angela, are there any questions on Part 2?
Juanita, there are no questions on Part 2 at this time.
Okay. Part 3, contractual terms and conditions. This part describes the terms and conditions which apply to the procurement process and which will become part of the contract executed pursuant to this RFP. Please read over this entire RFP document to ensure that you fully understand and will comply with all provisions. Any exceptions to the RFP should be clearly stated in the letter transmittal, providing specific and detailed reasons for each exception, along with suggested alternative language. The contract resulting from the RFP will incorporate the RFP, any amendments, the questions and responses, the contractor's proposal, and cost proposal. Please note a performance bond is required under the RFP Section 3.37 and is required under the State Lottery Act. Therefore, we cannot accept alternatives. Under Section 3.58.1, the contractor will be required to take the Texas Lottery Cybersecurity Training Program and sign the Information Security Agreement. In addition, Section 3.58.2, Cloud Computing, and Section 3.58.3, Data Protection, are recently new laws that have passed. Angela, are there any questions on Part 3?
Juanita, there are no questions at this time.
Okay. Part 4, required information, Section 4.1 through 4.4. Although these sections seem brief in the RFP, these sections require proposals to gather, compile, and submit a great deal of detailed documentation. Please read these sections in depth and provide all the information in your section-by-section response. So for a 4.1 in the RFP, we want to see a 4.1 in your proposal. Section 4.5, conflict of interest. In this section, you're asked to disclose any actual potential and or perceived conflict of interest. Please review this section and make any disclosures. Section 4.6, financial soundness. Texas Lottery Commission does a thorough financial analysis of all proposals. Please provide the information requested under this section. If you feel this information is confidential, please mark it as such. This is a pass-fail category on the scoring matrix. It's critical that you provide the requested information. Section 4.7, background investigation. TLC reserves the rights to conduct an in-depth background investigation on the apparent successful proposer. Section 4.7.2, a background investigation may be conducted on a contractual defined vendor principles, meaning those who will be directly involved in selling or leasing the goods or performing the services subject to this RFP or resulting in a contract. This includes partners, shareholders, officers, directors who are directly involved. Section 4.7.3, background investigation may be conducted on vendor employees who meet one or more of the criteria under this section. This contract requires a background investigation of employees on site at the Texas Lottery Commission. Background investigation will include fingerprinting. The apparent successful proposer may be required to complete all forms included in Attachment E, E1, E2, E3, and E4 of the RFP by the prescribed time after the written announcement of the apparent successful proposer by the Texas Lottery. If you feel that the information you're providing in Attachment E is confidential, please mark it as such. As mentioned before, we ask that all proposers complete and submit attachment D1 with its proposal. This is a certification that your company would not be denied a sales agent license under Texas Government Code 466.155, which is attachment D in the RFP. Section 4.8, disclosure of interest parties. If requested, the successful proposal will be required to fill out a 1295 form with the Texas Ethics Commission. This is for contracts over $1 million and if you're not publicly traded company. Angela, are there any questions on part 4?
There are no questions on part 4, Juanita.
Thank you. At this time, I'll go ahead and turn it over to Eric Williams, who's going to go over part 5.
Good afternoon. My name is Eric Williams, and I'm the Hub Coordinator for the Texas Lottery Commission. I'll be covering a very crucial element of your proposal, the Hub Subcontracting Plan. If you are not the individual responsible for preparing the HSP, please pass this information to them and recommend they watch the video of this pre-proposal conference, which will be posted on the agency website. The Hub Subcontracting Plan is used to identify both Hub and non-Hub subcontractors that will be utilized under the awarded contract. All proposers, Hub and non-Hub, submitting a response to this RFP are required to submit an HSP. No one is exempt. As Juanita previously mentioned, the HSP is a pass-fail element of this RFP. No evaluation points are given for the HSP, and proposers must submit an HSP with their proposal regardless of their subcontracting intentions. All proposals received not including an HSP will be rejected, and the technical portion will not be evaluated. So it's important to submit a completed HSP with your proposal. Also, during the reviewing process, if it is determined that your submitted HSP has failed, your proposal will be disqualified and will not be evaluated. The HSP process is governed by a rule established by the Texas Comptroller of Public Accounts. Per section 5.1 of the RFP, you are responsible for reviewing this rule. The definition of a subcontractor is very broad and applies to any third-party vendor used to fulfill any portion of the contract. Our definition of a subcontractor is any person who contracts with the successful proposer to work, to supply commodities, or contribute toward completing work for the Texas Lottery Commission. In other words, if the successful proposer who is awarded this contract is paying anyone who is not an employee to provide goods and/or services, they are very likely subcontracting under this definition. These individuals will receive a 1099, unlike your employees who will receive a W-2. Self-performance. A proposer who indicates that their company will not be subcontracting any portion of the contract will be fulfilling the entire contract with their own resources, including its own equipment, supplies, materials, and/or employees, will be self-performing. Keep in mind that a pre-existing subcontracting relationship is considered subcontracting, in which case you cannot claim self-performance. A pre-existing subcontracting relationship is the business affiliation your company has with a third-party vendor who is currently supplying your company with goods and/or services and will continue to supply those goods and/or services to assist you in the performance of this contract. If you determine that your company is capable of fulfilling the entire contract with your own equipment, supplies, materials, and/or employees, please check the appropriate box in Section 2, which is the Respondent Subcontracting Intentions on the HSP form. Complete Section 3, which is the self-performing justification, by providing a thorough explanation of how your company will perform the entire contract with its own employees, supplies, materials, and/or equipment as it relates to Part 6 of the RFP, which is the scope of services. You will also complete Section 4 of the HSP form, which is the affirmation prior to submitting your HSP with your proposal. If you're not self-performing, you would need to proceed with the good faith effort of the HSP. We've identified potential subcontracting opportunities in section 5.5.1 of the RFP. These areas may or may not be subcontracted depending on the proposer's existing resources, employees, and business model. You are not limited to the list in the RFP. However, if you intend to subcontract any portion of the contract and it's not listed, you are responsible for identifying it in your HSP submission. We have included in the RFP a list of hub vendors by CMBL class and commodity description to assist you in finding potential hub vendors. Lottery Commission does not endorse, recommend, or attest to the capabilities of any company or individual listed within the RFP or on the CMBL Hub search directory. The good faith effort methods are for those proposers who intend to subcontract any portion of the contract. The goal of this good faith effort is to actively involve hubs in the Texas procurement process and ensure they receive a fair share of state business. Please check the appropriate boxes in section 2, which is the respondent subcontracting intentions of the HSP form, and perform one of the 3 good faith effort methods. The optional quick checklist will assist you in determining which of the 3 methods you should use. Good faith effort method A has 2 options. Method A, option 1. This option is for the proposer who will use only Texas certified hubs for all subcontracting opportunities listed in section 2B, the respondent subcontracting intentions on the HSP forms. If you use this method, please verify online that the hub vendor is still an active hub listed on the CMBL. Method A, option 2, meeting the specified hub contract goal. This option is for the proposer who will use a combination of non-hubs and Texas certified hubs. However, to meet the specified hub contract goal of 23.7%, the proposer can only count those hubs with which you have had contracted with for 5 years or less. If you're going to subcontract and cannot claim method A1 or A2, then you must submit your HSP using method B, which is a good faith effort outreach. And this is done by notifying at least 3 Texas certified hubs per subcontracting opportunity. Provide those hubs at least 7 working days to respond, excluding the day the solicitation was emailed, mailed, or faxed to the hub vendors, weekends, holidays, and any other day the executive director has closed the agency. Providing the scope of work for hubs to determine whether they are interested. Providing a location where the specifications are located, i.e. a link to the posting on the ESBD or a physical location. Information regarding insurance or bonding requirements if applicable. And also, in addition, notify a minimum of 2 minority women trade organizations and or business development centers, providing the same information as well as the same time frame for responses. A mentor may utilize a protege from a state agency sponsored mentor-protege agreement for the subcontracting opportunity if the protege is able to provide the services. The mentor-protege relationship may be utilized in lieu of additional solicitation. Proposers using this method must perform outreach even for areas where a proposer has a pre-existing or an exclusive subcontracting relationship that will be used in the performance of this contract. Our evaluation process for proposals received on or before the deadline for proposals is to review and evaluate the HSP and all supporting documentation to determine if the HSP has passed or failed. During our review, we may request clarification of information in your submitted HSP. Again, there are no evaluation points assigned to the HSP. It is strictly a pass or fail element. If it is determined that your HSP has failed, the technical portion of your proposal will not be evaluated. Following the award of contract, Any proposed changes to the HSP must be submitted for review and approval by the agency. A written change approval form will be provided by the Lottery Commission. Subcontracting without prior authorization is a breach of contract. Monthly subcontracting expenditure reports are required as condition of payment. As the successful proposer, they must provide written notice to each subcontractor informing them of their selection. A copy of this notice must be provided to the Lottery Commission no later than 10 working days after contract award, as stated in section 5.6.1. The notice must specify at a minimum the contracting agency's name and its point of contact for the contract award number, the subcontracting opportunity to be performed, the appropriate dollar value of the subcontracting opportunity, and the expected percentage of the total contract that the subcontracting opportunity represents. To assist you with the HSP, the Lottery Commission provides the following resources and assistance. All vendors are strongly encouraged to take advantage of all the resources. This pre-proposal conference video will be posted on the agency website. A copy of the TLC's pre-bid proposal conference booklet regarding HSP requirements is available on the agency's website. An HSP quick checklist is included in the RFP. Proposals have the opportunity to submit HSP questions, written questions, up until the date of your proposal submission. However, we suggest you submit questions early to allow yourself the necessary time to cure any deficiencies with your plan. You're encouraged to start working on your plan right away to give yourself plenty of time. The HSP Q&A is posted on the TLC website and the ESBD, which will be a rolling document. So be sure to check the date posted. We will review drafts of your HSP to identify deficiencies and provide feedback. However, we will not state whether your draft has passed or failed. We will provide one-on-one workshops upon request. These may be conducted via Zoom, Teams, or a telephone conference call. The purpose of the workshops is to discuss the Hub subcontracting requirements, answer questions specific to conducting a good faith effort, and completing the HSP forms. This process will also allow you the opportunity to submit your HSP forms for review by the Lottery Commission prior to the proposal deadline. However, this process does not guarantee that the HSP submitted with the proposal will pass. It is the proposal's responsibility to understand the requirements of the HSP and to perform all the required steps prior to submitting the HSP. The last date to review any draft HSPs for deficiencies in one-on-one workshops is listed in section 1.4 of the RFP. As per section 2.1 of the RFP, please forward all questions or requests to Juanita. Again, we strongly encourage you to take full advantage of all the available resources to assist you with your HSP. Once you submit your HSP with the proposal, there is no opportunity to cure. Please consult the schedule of events and make sure that you know which dates are critical in terms of preparing and submitting the HSP. In closing, I'll remind you again, if you're not the person who is responsible for completing the HSP, please pass this information to them, as well as let them know that today's pre-proposal conference will be available for view on the agency website. Please submit questions regarding the HSP after this conference in writing, and they will be answered and posted on the agency website and on the ESBD. HSP questions can be submitted up until the deadline for proposals, which again is listed in section 1.4 of the RFP. At this time, are there any questions to part 5 of the RFP?
Hi, Eric. There are no questions at this time.
Okay, thank you, Angela. And at this time, I'll turn it back over to Juanita.
Thank you, Eric. We'll go over Part 6, Scopes of Services. Part 6 requires a section-by-section response. I will not be going into detail on this section. This is your opportunity to tell us how you'll perform the services described in each section. It's not enough to say you can do something. Tell us how you'll do it. Provide examples of techniques that you're they've used for success. Proposers need to demonstrate their abilities to do the work requested. Angela, are there any questions on part 6?
Juanita, there are no questions at this time.
Okay. Well, we are towards the end of our conference. Please submit any questions in the Q&A feature, or you can submit questions in accordance with the scheduled events. Here are some final reminders. All scope of service questions must be submitted in writing via email to me by the deadline of the scheduled events. Scope of services questions that are not submitted in writing by the time and date specified will not be answered. If you have a question on the RFP process, you can contact me and I may be able to respond. Generally, this is the case for all sections except part 6, but don't hesitate to ask. Please note of all dates in the scheduled events. Proposers are responsible for checking the ESPD and TLC's website for any and all notices, amendments, and Q&A regarding this RFP. We will not directly email these to you. Prior to submission of your proposal, please review the entire RFP carefully to ensure that you submit all required information and/or documentation. The pre-proposed conference video and sign-in sheet will be on the ESPD and the TLC's website prior to the end of the next business day. Angela, are there any final questions before we go?
There is one question. The question is, what are the COVID protocols related to the lottery draw specialist and draw auditors? We understand that these may have evolved over time. Is there a current set of guidelines or established set of criteria we could see? Conchita, do you want to take a stab at that one?
Hello, Angela. Thank you. That would be something we need to have addressed by HR.
Okay, so we will answer that question in writing in the written Q&A. We have another question that came in. Does the lottery studio anticipate a move from its current location? And I'll answer that one. The answer is yes. We are currently moving the studio with an anticipated move date of June 1st this year to 1801 Congress Avenue, which is our new headquarters building. I don't see any other questions. I'm going to close the questions at this time. You can submit any additional questions in writing to Juanita as stated in the RFP. Juanita, back to you.
Okay, well, this concludes our conference. Thanks again for your attendance and have a good day.